My name is Bruner. I'm a certified financial planner with a practice that focuses on retirement income planning. So, Social Security and the decision around Social Security are a huge part of everyone's retirement income plan. Whether you take it early, late, how do you claim it with the spouse, all those types of decisions are hugely important. You see some of the stats where Social Security accounts for a big percentage of a lot of people's retirement income. It's kind of like the baseline floor that they have coming in and guaranteed lifetime income. So it's an important decision, and I think being informed on how it works and what your options are is the first step in making that decision. So we're going to kind of go over the background of Social Security. We're going to look a little bit under the hood on the mechanics of how it's calculated. It gives you an idea of how do we get to that number. And then we're going to talk about claiming decisions. And the one thing I kind of like to preface this talk with is that there's no way to make the perfect decision with Social Security. You don't know when you're going to die. If you did, you could make the perfect decision on a lot of things. But we just don't know. So in every financial planning decision, you're making it based on the best available information you got. And under the expectancies, the life expectancies that you think you're going to have, relative maybe to your parents. And so you're making that decision based off those things. So there's no decision that's perfect, and there's no decision that for you is the right decision, but for your friend or your neighbor is the same decision. And everybody's making a decision with some different variables in it. So as we go along, if you have questions about what I'm talking about, just raise your hand. I think we have an hour and a half for this. It usually doesn't take an hour and a half. So I usually say, we'll get through this in 50 to 60 minutes, but then we can have some questions at the end, and then I'll hang out a little while afterwards. If you got a question that you don't want to ask in front of the group, I'll hang out to the person answer that. So, kind of what we're going to go over is, will it be there? We're going to touch on that a little bit. We get a lot of people come into our office and, it's not going to be there. Well, for the baby boom generation, it's probably not going to be changed much at all. Now, I'm 41, so my benefit payout is probably going to be changed, over the next decade or so to help shore up the solvency of Social Security long term. How much can I get? That's the big question. And your statement has some numbers on it, and you can create an account online, but is that really going to be accurate according to your situation? It's going to be close, but we'll talk about what can kind of throw that off. When should I apply? That's kind of the biggie. All right, when do I take this benefit? How do I maximize it? So, everybody's not just making the Social Security decision in a vacuum. They've got 401k accounts, they've got investment accounts that are going to help provide retirement income. So, is it a matter of I'm going to take Social Security early so I don't have to spend some of that money? Or am I going to delay Social Security, spend some of that money now so my Social Security is way bigger and I have a higher guaranteed income for the rest of my life? That's part of the decision process. And will it be enough for me to live on? Now, I will say for 95% of the clients that I work with, Social Security alone is not enough to live on the lifestyle that they want. It's a baseline income, it's a baseline guaranteed income for retirement, but it usually is not going to provide the whole retirement income that you need. So understanding the value. Sometimes when you look at the monthly numbers, and especially, maybe if you've had higher incomes throughout your career, the monthly income, so it's like, that's, $1,500, $2,000 a month. Is that really, a lot? Well, when you add it up over a lifetime, if it starts at $2,000 and you get it for 10 years, now these numbers are assuming inflation adjustments. Social Security does have inflation adjustments. The most recent one was 2.8%. Kind of the average is about 2.6. And there's been some years in recent history where it's been 0, when inflation has been low. But over time, it kind of averages out to about 2.6. So if you live 20 years, 30 years, a 30-year lifetime receiving a $2,000 benefit increasing for inflation is over $1 million of income that you receive over your retirement. So when you look at it in that context, I mean, it's a pretty good benefit. And it also offers inflation adjustments, like I said. So that 2.6 number is kind of a recent average over the last 10 to 20 years, actually the last 30 years. And what does that number mean? Well, it means if you start at $2,000 10 years from now, your benefits now at $2,585, 20 years from now it's at $3,342, 30 years from now it's at $4,320. Now, I will say, for retirees, that 2.6% inflation adjustment usually isn't the reality of their costs going up in retirement. Because, we've seen inflation go up in a bunch of different ways, especially healthcare being one. So that 2.6% number is meant to help you keep up with inflation, but I think when reality plays out with the clients that I work with, 2.6 really isn't the inflation that they see in real life, but at least it's not zero. Will it be there for me? So this is the big question, and some of the controversy you hear. Some politicians talking about things now with Medicare and Social Security, and it gets called an entitlement program, which I don't really like that phrase. I mean, you've paid into Social Security your whole life. Well, are you entitled to it? I think you're entitled to it. It's your benefit. I mean, so that argument and that phrase kind of hurts me a little bit. It's not like you're getting something for free. You put the money in there. But when we talk about the solvency of Social Security, there's a report that comes out every year talking about, and it really is looking at who's claiming benefits, how much money is going in from workers, and how that's going to play out over time. So the total income that came into Social Security in 2017 was $996 billion. Expenditures, which is basically the cost to run the program and all the benefit payment to retirees and disabled, $952 billion. So it increased by $44 billion, and the trust fund balance is $2.89 trillion. Now, they made some changes in the past that basically were building up this trust fund because they knew the baby boom generation was coming. They would have a whole influx of retirees pulling benefits out. So that's where kind of the trust fund idea came from. Oops, wrong button.
So if the trust fund is still going, why do we hear so much about all of the scare tactics that Social Security is not going to be there?
Well, because it's the trajectory of the withdrawals from the trust fund and the number of workers paying in for the number of workers taking out. That is shifting. When Social Security started, I think the number was 12 or 13 workers were working and paying into Social Security for 2 or 3 that were taking money out. But that balance is shifting. Now it's like 3 workers for every 1 taking it out. So that's where the trust fund is meant to be built up and kind of step down. When we look at kind of the income coming in and then the scheduled benefit payments, the current projection, what they're saying now, is if nothing is done, so if no adjustment is made, no increase in Social Security tax, no reduction in benefits, no adjustment to the inflationary increases, in 2034, it will only be able to pay out 77% of promised benefits. So, the going broke thing is not going broke. It's just, if nothing's done, there's going to have to be a reduction in benefits. Now, this is kind of the drastic, like, hey, we got to get something changed type of data. But, there are some proposals and some reforms that can make the system solvent, pretty easily with some relatively minor adjustments with a couple of these different levels. So, what they could do is, so right now, up to $128,400 of income is subject to Social Security tax. So one thing they could do is they could say, well, we're going to adjust that up to $150,000. They can make that adjustment. That pushes more money into the system. They could raise the normal retirement age. Now, a lot of you guys in this room, your normal retirement age is not 65. And when they say normal retirement age and full retirement age, that's when you're entitled to your full benefit. So they've made adjustments over time, so now it's not 65, now it's 66 or 67, depending on the birthday. We'll kind of look at that too. They can lower benefits for future retirees. So I was joking, I'm 41. Is my Social Security going to look the same as it does now? Probably not. They're probably going to adjust my retirement age, how my benefits calculated, something along those lines to help short it out. And then the other thing was they can reduce the cost of living adjustments. So they can say, our formula is this now, but going forward it's going to be this, which is a lower CPI number. So all of these things combined with just a little tweak in each one can make this Social Security system solvent for another 100 years. But the problem is politics, mostly. I don't think both sides disagree that this is an issue, but they disagree with the fix. I think some would say, well, we favor raising the amount of income that's taxed. Some would say we favor lowering benefits. And, if there's going to be that argument, the real issue is if they can't get together on a compromise. And they just, move the can down the road and don't fix anything. But, that's where I encourage people, contact your legislators, either side of the fence, and say, work together and get some solutions in place.
What is each side of the fence? Republicans, Democrats?
Republicans, Democrats.
But what? No, I know that. But which one? Like Republicans, what are they leaning towards? Democrats?
Well, like Mitch McConnell just came out and said, and I'm trying to walk the center of the line here.
My question was center line.
We had this tax cut, we had a corporate tax cut, and now we need to pay for it by reducing Medicare, Social Security. But, I don't know if that's the solution or not, but generally Republicans don't want to raise taxes, so they're not going to want to do number one. They're not going to want to raise the wage base for Social Security. Democrats usually don't want to lower benefits because, they're trying to be the defenders of, Social Security. So each of them is going to have to give a little, in my opinion. Some of each of these would make it work, but it's that political, the third rail of politics they say is Social Security and don't mess with it. So hopefully they can figure out some solution. But like I said at the beginning, for the baby boom generation, the likelihood of their benefits being greatly reduced or changed is pretty small. I think for two reasons. Number one, it just wouldn't be fair. You plan on a certain benefit your whole career, and all of a sudden you're 64 years old and you're going to change it. Well, I don't think anybody think that's fair. And then on the political side of it is, baby boomers vote. So if politicians go in and say, well, yeah, we're adjusting this for these guys, they're going to not be happy. Whereas, me at 41, an adjustment to my Social Security 24 years from now isn't really at the top of my voting list at the moment, so they'll probably just take that one. I got time to recover. So how much am I going to get? This is a big question. We're going to talk a little bit about how it's calculated, what, you can get a statement, you can go on the Social Security website and pull up your statement and show you like an estimate, but sometimes that's not accurate because it's assuming that you work until that age. So if it's showing your age 67 payment, well, it's assuming you're working until you're 67. It's not assuming, well, I retire at 64 and wait till 67 to take your Social Security. So the number on that statement isn't always 100% accurate. There are some calculators on the Social Security website that can be more accurate because you can put in specifically your situation. You can say, all right, this is my situation, and I'm going to retire at 64, so I'm not going to have any earnings after that, but I'm not going to take my Social Security until I'm 67 or 70. So you can get a little bit more accurate picture. But basically the way the benefit's calculated is it's how much you've earned over your working career and the age at which you apply for benefits. So those are your two major factors. How much you have earned and they take a 35-year average of your earnings. And then what age you apply for benefits. The earlier you apply, the lower you're going to get, the later you apply, the higher you're going to get. When we look at how the calculation runs, they start at age 62 and they say, we're going to tally up all those earnings, 35 years of earnings, and we're going to average them out for inflation. So they're basically saying, if you earned $10,000 30 years ago, inflation adjustment, that's like $45,000 today. So they're going to make an adjustment there. They use that average monthly earnings and they divide it by 3 bend points. So a bend point basically is, they're looking at it and they're saying, we're going to replace more income for a lower wage worker than a higher wage worker. So they kind of have these bend points in the calculation. So from a low wage earner's perspective, Social Security is going to replace more of their, as a percentage of their income than a higher wage earner. And so they figure out what they call your PIA, and that's kind of the base number that they're using to calculate the benefit, which is primary insurance account. And that number is what you get at your full retirement age. And we'll talk about full retirement age because full retirement age is different for people born in different years. And then the benefit is increased each year by cost of living adjustment. So like I said, the cost of living adjustment that was just announced for Social Security is 2.8% for next year. And a couple of years ago it was 0. Years before that it was 5. Averages out to about 2.6. So this is just an example. So this is someone born in 56. So this is a little unrealistic example, but they're saying they maxed out their Social Security earnings every year since age 22. So their average index monthly earnings is $9,937. Wouldn't we all like to average that for our whole career? And then what they do is they apply this formula. So here's the PIA formula. They take the first 895 times 90%, that gives us $805. Then the next 4502 times 32% gives us $1440. Then the next 4540 times 15%. And they add these up. This is what they add up, and this is your PIA. So that's the amount this worker would receive at their full retirement age.
Question. On your 35 years, do they have to be together, or if you work a year and take a year off and work a year, does that affect?
It does. So, good question. So zeros count, essentially, in your average. So when you're looking at, if you're 65 and you started working, you were 20. You got 40, maybe you worked in high school and stuff. You got 45 plus years of earnings history. Now, they take the highest 35. So if you have some zeros in there, but you have other years that kind of replace those, then it helps your average. Let's say you're only in the workforce for 20 years. Then it's basically got 15 years of zero in that average. So it does affect it. So, someone that, maybe had a shorter career and they work another year or two, that year of work is replacing a zero in their average, so it's helping them out, yeah.
So follow on, if you work 35 years, and then you take 10 years of zeros, they'll still take your first 30
Yes.
years.
Yep.
So the zeros won't hurt you at all.
Right, and the question I get around that a lot is, well, what if I work till I'm 60, and then I don't work till I'm 65, and then I take Social Security? Are those 5 years of zeros counting as zeros? No, they're not if you have 35 other years of earnings. But, like with your statement, when they calculate that number, they assume you work till that age. So that's where the statement can be a little off on what it says.
I got one more question. I'm assuming pension would be earnings.
Pension doesn't count as earnings. So earnings is only earnings from work. So W-2, 1099, self-employment income. Because that income is the only income that has FICA taxes on it. And the FICA tax is what goes into the Social Security system. So like if you get a pension payout from work, and you started at 60, that's not counting as earnings because it's not wages, it's a pension payout. So it is, it's just when they're averaging the earnings, they're just counting, W-2 income from your pay stub, 1099 self-employment type income, not investment income, not pension income. So basically just your work earnings. Your earnings that you're paying FICA taxes on is what's used to calculate your Social Security. So full retirement age, depending on year of birth, this is full retirement age. So when we talked about that calculation of a PIA, primary insurance account, that's the number you would get. So if you were born in 1958 and your PIA is $2,000, you'd get $2,000 if you waited until age 66 and 8 months. Otherwise, it's going to be reduced. And we're going to talk about how reductions work by taking it early. But these are I'll be saying full retirement age or FRA a few more times. This is what it is. So here's the reduction. So if you apply early, and your full retirement age is 66 and you apply at 62, you get 75% of your PIA. So that's a 25% reduction. And it's basically about a 6% reduction per year. If your full retirement age is 67 and you started at 62, you get 75% or 70% of your benefit. And so then we see as we go down the line, you wait another year. Now this person is at their full retirement age of 66, they get 100% of their PIA payout. Now what happens if I wait beyond my full retirement age? So if I say, I don't need the money, or maybe you're still working, I don't need the money at 66 or 67, I'm going to wait till 70 to maximize my payout. Well, then it goes like this. If your full retirement age is 66 and you wait till 67, you get 108% of your PIA. If you wait till 68, 116, 69, 124, and 132. So when you really look at the gap between taking it at 62 and taking it at 70, you're going from 70% of your PIA number to 132%. I mean, that's a huge difference. But that's also 8 years. So that's also saying, well, I didn't take any payments out, and I can live off something else in the meantime. So that's the trade-off. How do you get your estimate? So this goes back to what I was saying about statements, is you can get your statement at socialsecurity.gov or SSA.gov, and then here's some calculators here too that you can run kind of a more accurate estimate on the website. And I will say, has anyone ever created an account on SSA.gov? So they ask you a bunch of funky questions, like, where did you have a mortgage in 1998? And what car did you finance in 2012? Well, what they're doing is they're trying to identify you from your credit report. So, it seems a little weird to some people first time, like, where are they getting this information? But it's, data security, they're trying to make sure it's you. Once you create an account, you don't have to go through that again. If you get the questions wrong, they can kick you out and kind of lock your account, and then you gotta, get a code from them so be careful when you're answering them. Don't just click, kind of think about them and make sure you get them right. But once you get an account set up, then it's pretty slick. You can log in whenever you want, and then when you're on Social Security, you can log in, see your payments and direct it to a bank account and stuff like that. So it's good to have.
Apply directly. I could not figure out if I could apply directly from that profile.
You can apply on there. The weird thing is, I actually did this with a client yesterday, and we were logged into her account, and we couldn't find within the account the apply for Social Security button. So what we did was we logged out of that. We went to the Social Security website. We went to apply for Social Security. There's just a button in one of the spots, and then it popped up and had us log into her account and do the application. So I could have been doing it wrong.
I gave up.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Okay.
But applying for Social Security, the process is basically 10-15 minutes. You're going through, you're answering some questions, put in your bank account you want to deposit it to, tell them you want things to start. It's not too bad. You can also go to the Social Security office, but I've heard that's 2 or 3 hours. A little time consuming. Someone was telling me the other day about the cragginess of the person at the front desk. I'm like, well, if you come to my office, I'll be really happy and we'll just sit down and have a code and do the application. So one thing we're going to get into is spousal benefits. At its core, a spousal benefit is half of the primary worker PIA if you started at the full retirement age. So we're going to look at a few examples that kind of illustrate how spousal benefits work. Let's say John's PIA is $2,000, but Jane's is $800. So if she goes and applies for benefits at her full retirement age, her benefit would be $1,000, not $800. It would be half of John's. If she applies early, that's going to be reduced. So really what's happening is she's getting $800 of her own retirement benefit, and then she's getting a $200 kind of spousal add-on to that.
Does her spouse have to fit his PIA?
What's that?
Does the spouse have to get his full retirement age?
No, it's just if she's applying on his record, if she's full retirement age, then she can get the full spousal benefit. He has to file for benefits, so he doesn't have to be full retirement, but he has to file for benefits. So if he's 63 and hasn't filed for benefits, she can't get a spousal benefit. If he's
Yeah.
right. So if the spouse goes in and says, well, I'm not full retirement age yet, but I want to get some benefits, there's going to be a reduction. So anytime you apply before full retirement age, there's going to be a reduction in benefits. For spousal benefits, you know how we were talking about that after full retirement age, you're getting 8% increases on the retirement benefit. That does not affect spousal benefits. So that 8% increase after 66 does not add on to the spousal benefit. It only adds on to the retirement benefit. So in a lot of cases, sometimes if one spouse was a higher wage earner and the other spouse was a little bit lower, and they're going to claim based off the other spouse's income, instead of that person waiting until 70, it's like, well, there's no benefit for you for waiting beyond 66, so go ahead and take it at 66. So that's kind of one decision that the numbers make for you if you're in that situation. Divorce spouse benefits, we get this question quite a bit, is basically work the same as spousal benefits. So it's kind of like you're still married for Social Security calculations. If the marriage has lasted 10 years or more, you haven't remarried, before age 60, really. The ex-spouse is at least age 62, and then if the divorce was at least 2 years old, the ex-spouse does not have to file for benefits. If it's a fresh divorce, then to claim spousal benefits, the other spouse would have to file. So a little complication in there. Rules for divorce. Now this is the funny story that I tell where I had 4 wives. I haven't really had 4 wives, but let's just say at 20 I got married, and I was married to that wife for 10 years, and turned 30 in a day, and divorced, and found another lady the next day, and got married, and 10 years there, got divorced again. So I did that 4 times. Well, technically, all 4 of those ex-spouses of mine could claim spousal benefits off of my Social Security benefit. Now, I tell that in jest a little bit, but I actually was doing one of these presentations, and a lady raised her hand and said, "Yep, I'm one of 3." I'm like, well, all right, it's not such an unheard of example. So the benefits paid to one ex-spouse don't affect another. So that's kind of the thing where people are like, oh wow, these 4 people are claiming a benefit off of one person, and what they're claiming doesn't affect the other one. So it's kind of an unusual situation, but it's part of the system. And the divorce spouse benefits stop if you get remarried. So
Once you're over a certain age.
right. If you get remarried after age 60, with a divorced spouse, if you get remarried, your spouse benefits based off your ex-spouse stop, and your spouse benefits kind of switch to the new spouse. Depends what their incomes were and PIAs were. Not that you would make a marriage decision based on Social Security, but I guess technically there could be dollars involved there. And then survivor benefits. So this is, unfortunately another issue that I deal with occasionally is if your spouse passes away, you do have benefits possibly based off of their benefits and their PIA. So the benefits are calculated and it's based off when the deceased spouse claimed their benefits. So if the deceased spouse claimed early, that reduces the survivor benefits. If they claim later, that can increase the survivor benefits. So sometimes that's a decision with couples where, maybe the higher wage earner is going to delay to build up their benefit in case they die first, and the surviving spouse gets a higher payout based off their benefit because they built it up to a higher amount. So if the deceased spouse had waited beyond full retirement age, those credits are still there. So those 8% increases are going to help give the survivor a bigger benefit. And then the widow or widower, when they apply for benefits, the calculation is also going to include when they apply. So when that widow or widower applies for benefits, if they apply at 62, that survivor benefit is going to be less than if they applied at 64 or 65 or 66. And basically, if you, let's say we have I think I have on the next one. Yeah. So if a spouse dies while both are receiving benefits, you switch to the higher benefit. So, in most couples, their income and their PIA isn't the same. So, let's say their incomes were different over their lifetime, so their PIA, their calculation of Social Security is different. So let's say they're married, they're both over full retirement age. Joe's benefit is $2,000, Julie's is $1,200, and Joe dies. Well, you don't continue both of your benefits, but Julie doesn't have to stay at her $1,200 benefit, she jumps up to Joe. So before, when they were both alive, they were getting $3,200 a month from Social Security. After Joe's death, they would get $2,000. So even though he's dead, she steps up and gets his benefit. And basically, by Social Security, they update that. This is an example of how claiming early would affect the spouse. So they're married, kind of same example, but he files at 62. So as we saw in the reductions before, his benefit is 75% of that. He gets $1,500. So in our example, we're killing him off. Her survivor benefit is going to depend on when she claims it. So if she claims her survivor benefit at 66 or later, her benefit will be 82.5% of Joe's PIA. So she's not totally penalized by him taking it early, but there is a reduction. And then there's a special floor provision of $1,650 for survivors that kicks in there too. Now, as a survivor, you can claim a benefit at 60. It's really one of the only pre-62 benefits you can claim. So she can claim her survivor benefit at 60, and it would be 71% of the 2,000, which is $1,430. Now, here's the flip side of that. So in this example, he waited. So he filed for Social Security at 70. So as we saw in the increases, his benefit is 132% of that 2,000, which is $2,640. So her survivor benefit will be equal to Joe's benefit of $2,640. If she claims it early, that $2,640 is used for the calculation. So 71.5 of $2,640 is $1,887. So she gets a bigger survivor benefit because he delayed. If she claims it at 66 or later, she gets 100% of what his benefit was built up to. So that's where, as couples, the decision can sometimes be that one claims it at one age and the other waits, to a later age to kind of balance things out. And like I said, there's absolutely no perfect way to make this decision because you don't know how things are going to work out life expectancy-wise. So kind of making the decision with the best information that we got. They had to be married for at least 9 months unless they died in an accident. So that protects someone that got married and someone died in a car crash or something. But the 9 months is also meant to kind of be, not to be morbid, but like marrying someone on their deathbed to get their Social Security survivor benefits. I'm sure there was some case that came up that made them implement this rule. The survivor must be at least 60 for reduced benefits, and there's some disability if younger than that, if there's a disability issue. Or full retirement age for the full benefit. This is an example that happened with one of my clients is the survivor benefit is not available to the widow or widower if they remarried before age 60, unless that marriage ends. So if you remarried at 54 and it ends at 55, that's not an issue. But I had a client come into my office and he said, and he had unfortunately lost his wife a couple years earlier. He was 59 at the time, close to turning 60. And he had found the new love of his life, which was great. And we were talking about that, and they were going on vacation, and he had an engagement ring, and they were going to get engaged in Fiji. And we were talking and laughing and, doing some other financial planning stuff. And he left the office, and I was thinking, well, he was going to claim a widow's benefit when he turned 60. And that was part of our plan, part of our income plan. And I got to thinking, I'm like, oh, shoot, if he actually gets married before age 60, that's going to negate his widow's benefit. And so I called him up, and he was driving home, and I said, hey, so I know you're getting engaged next month, but when's the actual marriage? He said, oh, we're not getting married, we won't get officially married until next year. I said, okay, good, you'll be 60 then, so it won't affect how that calculation goes. So it worked out. And divorced spouse have to be married for at least 10 years. All right, so when, yeah. That is okay. Yep. Not that I encourage that. Okay.
I have another question related to survivor benefits. How are they calculated if the spouse died before they apply?
So they're gonna have their built up benefit, their P&O. So that's gonna be the number that they use to calculate.
But then I could apply at 60.
Yeah. Same reductions, so if you apply at 60, it's 71.5% of that number. But similar calculation.
So the calculation for them, I'm assuming that way that they were doing it for pregnancy?
Right. Okay. Now, a lot of times in that situation, if the spouse passed away before age 65 or 66, they didn't have those additional earning years, so that affects it. But yeah, intents and purposes, that's, yeah. So when should I apply? The big question. What are the factors? Obviously, health status. We talk to our clients a lot about, mom's alive at 93, dad lived at 104, or, everybody in our family dies at 68. And people have their stories and their family history, but that's definitely a factor with life expectancy. And health status too. If someone comes and sits down with me and they've had some chronic health issues their whole life, and we have a real honest discussion and say, they say to me, my doctor says my life expectancy is mid-70s instead of, normal life expectancy for 65-year-old males 83, females 86 or 87. That's just, the stats on life expectancy. But if, we're having a conversation where, health is going to be an issue and life expectancy is affected by that could push us more towards taking it early than taking it late. It's just part of the factors that we look at. The other thing is need for income. I talked earlier that Social Security is not meant to be a full income replacement in retirement, but we always have to be honest with ourselves. If we haven't saved enough for retirement and we need, for health reasons or whatever, we're going to retire at 62 or 63, and we need that Social Security check to help us pay the rent and food, clothing, and shelter, that's going to be another part. Whether or not you plan to work. So if you claim Social Security before your full retirement age and you work and make over, I'll have it on the slide here in a second, like $17,400, they reduce your Social Security payment. So in a lot of cases, if that's going to be the case, it doesn't make sense to claim the benefit if you're going to continue to work and make over that amount, because they're just going to pull down your benefit anyway. Now they give it back to you. So let's say I work and I make $40,000, so I make over that $17,000, and the Social Security is reduced or basically eliminated. So I really shouldn't have applied anyway. But I worked and made some consulting income, and it just happened. So they're going to pull back my Social Security, but then when I quit working for good, they're going to recalculate my Social Security with that earnings and the amount they didn't pay me, kind of factor in. But that's going to be paid back to me, over my whole lifetime, not like here's a lump sum check. And then survivor needs, as we talked about with the survivor examples, it's really about, as a couple, you're making the decision based on, well, what happens if one of us is gone? What's the income going to be if one of us isn't here anymore? And if Social Security numbers are similar, well, it's like, all right, there's $4,000 coming in every month from Social Security now, it's going to be $2,000, when one of us is dead. How does the lifetime income work with those numbers? And our expenses work with those numbers. Why delay? I mean, obviously we get a higher payment, so we have cost of living adjustments. We get more income later on. And kind of the key things to remember is when you apply early, your benefit is reduced forever. It's not like a temporary reduction. It's you are making essentially a 25 or 30-year decision. The COLAs, the cost of living adjustments. Now we all know if a cost of living adjustment is 3% on a $2,000 benefit, that dollar increase is higher than if it's 3% increase on a $1,500 benefit. So the cost of living adjustments are magnified more if you wait to take the benefit, because 3% of 2,000 is more than 3% of 1,500. So those dollar amount increases are higher. And the longer you live, they're magnified even more because your benefit gets higher and higher and higher, and you live longer and get more benefit payments to you. And your decisions affect survivor benefits. So, just making the decision for yourself if you're married, you gotta look at all factors. How can I maximize benefits? So here's kind of a little checklist and things that you need to do, kind of pre-retirement or applying for Social Security. One is check your statement. So that's going back to creating that account, logging in, looking at your statement. You want to look at that statement on page 3 of that statement. It's usually a 4-page statement. It's got the cover sheet, the inside sheet. I guess if you're looking at it as a PDF on the website, it's sheet 2. But that shows you kind of your benefit estimates. Sheet 3 shows your lifetime earnings. It's got the whole list from 1970 something to today of all your earnings years. It lists each one. Now, we found 2 instances with our clients when we looked at these where, for one of them, it showed a 0 in it. And they're like, there's income before that, income after that, and they're like, something's wrong there. So they actually went back to their old employer, and they figured out, something with their Social Security that year had not been reported correctly, so Social Security didn't get an income number to count in their formula for that year. So they got it corrected. Amazingly, it took a little labor, but they got it fixed. Another one was there was income shown in the year, but it was lower than they knew it should be because they had worked for one place and done some consulting stuff, and so somehow the system didn't have the right income in it, and they got that correct. So it affects your benefit. That's pretty rare. I mean, it's not normal. Normally, we look at it and you kind of eyeball it and like, that's made over those years. But it's important to take a look at it.
So then that number should be what was reported on your W-2, right?
That number will be, so there's two columns. One is Social Security wage, and the other is Medicare wage. So there's two columns for those income numbers. So the Social Security always has a maximum. So like last year it was 128,400. So if your income was over that, it would only show 128,400 because that's the only income counted for Social Security. So generally, I mean, for most people, it's going to be, what was your gross income that year? If you're just paid regular W-2 income and you weren't over the maximum, it's going to be your W-2.
So I taught for 4 years in the state of Kentucky, and they had a teacher's retirement program.
Yep.
And so my Social Security showed 0 for those 3 years.
Yep.
But I've never received it. I don't receive any benefits.
Do you have any Kentucky pension benefits, like teachers?
No, I wasn't past it.
Okay.
But still, it should factor in.
But it's, the reason it's not going to, and this is a pretty rare situation. Like some states, teachers, and some like cities and municipalities don't pay into Social Security. They have different pension systems. But essentially, for you, in that situation, you have 3 years of 0. Optimizing when you apply. So your income needs, your life expectancy, your spouse's life expectancy. Those are the factors. When we talk about whether or not you're going to work during retirement, this is where I was getting into if your benefits are going to be reduced. So around $17,040, not $40,000. If you're going to make over that, $1 in benefits will be withheld for every $2 over that limit. So, in that situation where if you say, well, I'm probably gonna make $40,000 or $50,000, but I'm also gonna apply for Social Security, well, they're gonna pull back most of your benefit payments anyway, so it's probably not gonna make sense to apply. Now, I have a lot of clients that they retire, they have some money saved in the bank that they're kind of living off of. They're not taking retirement account withdrawals yet, and they just want to retire from the corporate world, but they're like, well, I'm not going to sit at home all day, so I got to have something to do. So one of my clients loves gardening. She works at the garden center all summer. She doesn't make over $17,000. She's busy 3 days a week. She loves it. She's taking Social Security. It's her situation. That was the right decision. So it doesn't mean if you're going to work part time, don't take Social Security because I think she makes $15,000, and then her Social Security is another $15,000, and she's got some money in the bank. So she's got the money there she needs to live off of, and the house is paid for. So it doesn't mean don't work, it just means if you're going to take Social Security before full retirement age, you got to manage what you're going to pay. Now, I've also had the situation where someone takes Social Security not expecting to work. All of a sudden, someone calls them and says, hey, I got this consulting project. I'll pay you $60,000 to do this for the next 8 months. Well, doing that is going to net you more than having some of your Social Security benefits reduced. So if you want to do it, you do it. Don't make that decision in the context of Social Security. Make that decision in the context of do you want to do it and what's it going to pay you essentially. I guess the bottom note here is after full retirement age. So if your full retirement age is 66 or 67, if you earn money after that, no matter the amount, you don't reduce your Social Security. So this earnings test is only before your full retirement. So it's only if you claim benefits early. So if your full retirement age is 66, and that same situation comes up, someone says, hey, I got a consulting job, here's $60,000. You don't have to worry about your Social Security being affected by that. Coordinating spousal benefits. So there's kind of some strategies. Do you have a question?
Well, there's info that I just did earlier, like for the guy that has like the $60,000 consulting job. So would that impact his Social Security that year or like?
Yeah, it would only affect that year of the income. Good question. So she was asking, if you take that consulting job and you're gonna make $60,000 in that year, but you're taking Social Security. So if you just make that income in that year, that's the only year that your Social Security is gonna be reduced. And if you don't work beyond that, then it's gonna kick back up and kick back in and start paying.
My husband is 7 years older than me, and he wants to work until I stop working.
Okay.
So he'll be working beyond the age of 70.
Okay.
So my understanding is he should just start taking Social Security at 70 no matter what. But what happens to the income? Is that credited toward future Social Security?
Yep. So her question is, if her husband is going to work beyond age 70, should he take, number one, should he take Social Security at 70? The answer to that is yes. The Social Security doesn't give you any increases beyond age 70. So the answer to that one is yes, for sure. And then the second part of that question is, so let's say that income I make when I'm 70, and 71 and 72, does that get added into my formula? The answer to that is yes. So let's say at age 70 I apply, and I'm getting $2,000 a month. Well, every year as Social Security gets a report in, they say, oh, make more income, adjust the formula, and adjust the payment. Because what they're doing is they're now saying, here's a new 35 years of income. So readjust the formula, and usually if you're still working at 70, you're probably making better income than you were when you were in your 20s. So the calculation is going to say, all right, that's going to adjust the payment. And that adjustment's not going to be huge. It might be $10, $20, $25 a month, but it is going to adjust. So it does count in your formula. So one strategy with spouses is, there's kind of the two extremes. One is you can both take it early. You can both take it late. Or you can do some combination of the two. So it's kind of like, where's the middle ground of where I'm going to claim benefits. There is a provision, so they made some changes in Social Security. So this, what I'm going to say, doesn't apply to most people. But if you were age 62 by the end of 2015, there are still some provisions in Social Security where one spouse could claim a spousal benefit, like at 62, delay their own retirement benefit until their full retirement age, and then start their own retirement benefit. The way it's going to work for most people that don't fit into that category is whenever you claim your benefit, Social Security is going to give you the biggest one that they calculate. So if you go in there and you say, hey, I'm 62, just give me my spousal benefit. They're going to say, no, what we're calculating is we are calculating your retirement benefit plus your spousal benefit, and we're giving you both. We're not letting you come in and just take your spousal benefit and delay your own benefit anymore. That was a loophole that we were helping a lot of our clients, jump through in the past, but enough people started doing that, and we're like, oh, we got to shut that down. So if you're 62 by the end of, I think it's 2015, you can still possibly fall into that loophole, but
I actually know somebody who is in that situation, but she hasn't directly
oh, okay.
but she is over 62, she's getting 100%
Spouse. Okay. Yeah.
of
But not her own benefit because, because in her situation, she didn't really have her own benefit. She just had spouse. So yeah.
Is that only if the spouse that you're taking the benefit from is also retired and taking benefits?
Right. So where the lower earning spouse PA is more than 50% of higher earning spouse, both delayed. This special little asterisk here, that was about the little special situation I was talking about. Where the lower earning spouse's PIA is less than 50% of higher earning spouse, one kind of middle ground strategy is to have the lower earning spouse claim early and the higher earning spouse claim later. The reason you're doing that is because the lower earning spouse, the increase in the benefits because it's starting at a lower PIA isn't as drastic. It's not a big of a dollar amount. So you're kind of saying we're going to split the difference here a little bit. We're going to take some money now from Social Security, but the higher earning spouse, because those 6% increases before 66 or 67, 8% increases afterwards, are so much bigger on a dollar percentage, that person is going to delay to take advantage of the credits for delay. That's kind of a middle ground strategy where you say, well, we're not both going to delay, we're going to have one take early and one take late. And it kind of comes back to there's no perfect decision here, so in a way you're hedging your bets a little bit by doing it that way. Taxation. So I guess this has changed a little bit over time. It used to be like everyone thought Social Security is not taxable. And then, it's kind of switched where people were, more cognizant of their taxes. And I thought, oh yeah, Social Security is taxed. But it's kind of a weird formula to determine if it's taxable. So what they do is, we got the filing statuses here. So married filing jointly, single or head of household, and married filing separately. That's not usually the norm. But if you're married filing joint and so provisional income, they're going to calculate your adjusted gross income. So everybody knows the front page of their tax return, your adjusted gross income is basically that bottom line, 37 on the front page. Adjusted gross income. They're going to add half of your Social Security benefit to this calculation. So if you're getting $20,000 a year, they're going to add $10,000 to this number. Plus your tax exempt interest. So if you own municipal bonds, that's tax exempt interest. They're going to add that back in. Because normally under adjusted gross income, the muni bond interest is not calculated in that adjusted gross income. So they add those three things up. And if it's under $32,000, zero of your Social Security is going to be taxed. So I just tell people, Social Security is your only income, you're probably not paying tax on it. Now, if that total of that income is 32 to 44, up to 50% of your Social Security is taxable. So it's not a 50% tax rate, it's 50% of your Social Security is added to your taxable income. So if you're getting $20,000, they add $10,000 to your taxable income, and you're figuring out your tax due. Now, the hurdle's not very high, so if this number's over 44, then 85% of your Social Security is taxable. So, go ahead.
When was the last time these rules changed?
I don't know exactly, but it hasn't changed in a long time. So most people, it's like, well, if you have a pension from work, if you are taking some withdrawals from your IRAs, and you have a fairly decent Social Security benefit, especially, as a married couple, you're going to be over 44. Single, you're probably going to be over 44. So, in a lot of situations, you're paying tax on most of your Social Security.
Required was 1983.
83? Yeah.
Except 83.
83. But it doesn't look like they adjusted for inflation at all, which doesn't quite seem good. I didn't make the rule. So from a taxation standpoint, one of the things that kind of catches people is, they'll be going along, maybe they just started and they took Social Security and they do their taxes the first year, and like, oh, they didn't take any money out of IRAs or 401ks or have any pension income that year. Like, oh look, we don't owe any tax. Okay, so the next year it comes into play. And they need a new car. So they have their 401k, they got $400,000 sitting in their 401k or IRA. Oh, we need a new car, it costs $20,000, they take $20,000 out, they don't withhold any tax on the withdrawal. They pay the $20,000, they buy their car, they go file the tax. Well, what happened? That $20,000 now added to half of their Social Security and municipal bond interest puts them over one of these limits. All of a sudden, it shoves Social Security income over to be taxable. So it can create, withdrawals from other assets or other income can make Social Security taxable. So you kind of got to look at it globally and say, what does this withdrawal from my 401k or IRA do to the taxation of my Social Security? And I mean, most people don't even, think of it. They think, well, it wasn't taxable last year, it's not going to be taxable this year. Yeah, I know I'm going to owe some tax on my 401k withdrawal, but they don't realize that because of that, it causes taxation in another spot on the tax. Ways to minimize tax, reduce other income from tax advantage investments. So, I mean, that's basically saying don't take withdrawals from your 401k or IRA, but that's not reality for most people in retirement. So you just have to manage it. You just have to, if you're going to buy a car and you need 20 grand, maybe it's take 10 grand out in December and take the other 10 grand out in January and buy the car in January. Just kind of managing the tax there.
So does that come into play with your required minimum distributions?
It can.
Because you have to pay tax on.
Yes. So her question is, if you have a 401k or IRA, when you turn 70 and a half, the government requires you to take a minimum distribution from that account. So if you're going along and you defer your IRAs and 401ks till 70 and a half, don't take any withdrawals before that. And now your balance is higher from maybe when you retired. And the government basically says you have to take a required distribution from these accounts when you turn 70 and a half. The first year, the number is about 3.7%. So let's say you have, $1 million IRA. Well, you got to take $37,000 out as your required distribution, which counts as income, which can, that's already over the limits we saw there. So that kicks all your Social Security into the taxable. So that goes back to the strategy of saying, you've got to plan this in more than 1 year increments. You've got to say, all right, well, I'm 66. I don't need this IRA money. But maybe it does make sense for me to take $10,000 or $15,000 out a year, not go over that income limit to cause Social Security taxable, and I can squirrel that money away in another fund that's not going to be taxable. Convert it to a Roth or just put it in a regular investment account. So that's a really good question because that's where people get tripped up. They're like, oh, I don't want to pay tax. I need my IRA or 401k. So I'm going to delay. When in reality, that can be causing a tax chain of events further down the line that could have been mitigated in the years before you turn 70. IRA RMDs, well, that's what we just talked about. Converting traditional IRAs to Roths. If you convert a traditional IRA to a Roth, that is a taxable event. So that counts as income, so you still got to be careful on that. Some people come into us and say, oh, I got to convert to Roth. I read this article. It's like, well, here's all the things that happen when you convert money to a Roth. Here's the tax that has to be paid. Here's the other scenarios that can be paid. You can delay Social Security. Well, they're not going to tax you if you're not taking it. So that one's, I think, obvious. Reduce expenses, pay down debt, adopt a simpler lifestyle. That doesn't sound very fun at all in retirement. Come on. But it brings up a good point. Just in general from a retirement income planning perspective is, we're all going along. I thought I'm going to get some Social Security. I got a pension from this job. I'm saving this money. Debt pay down, to me, is, neck and neck with saving money. Because, if I have a client that retires with $1 million in an IRA, but has a mortgage that they have to service that's, $2,000 a month, well, that's $24,000 that they got to pay out each year. Versus, if you got a little bit smaller 401k or IRA and you have no debt, well, your lifestyle is simpler because you have no debt payments anymore. So, the ideal, and this doesn't always work out, and you can still have a great retirement, but the ideal is you arrive at retirement as close to having debt paid off as you possibly can. And a nice pool of money and Social Security and pension. And usually, if you're in that situation and your lifestyle is reasonable, retirement can be successful. It's what I see from a debt standpoint and a retirement standpoint. A big mistake is incomes go up over time. People expand their lifestyle to keep up with that income. Where in reality it should be, here's the lifestyle, the income goes up, and this is saved or used to pay off debt, the gap. And one of the big mistakes that I see someone had a $300,000 house, they're 57 years old, and you've always wanted this bigger house in a certain neighborhood. So they double the price of their house, they add a mortgage when they're 57 years old, that can put a real, handcuff on retirement because now you got to service this bigger mortgage. The flip side of that is a lot of people will say, well, I'm going to downsize. I think downsizing in many ways is somewhat a myth because, people live in a house and they say, and this is at all income levels and all housing price levels, they say, you know what, I'm going to downsize. Okay, so they're going to sell their $350,000 house in the summer and they're going to buy a condo. Well, all of a sudden, that condo is $300,000 plus they have association fee. So the downsizing thing as a way of generating some leverage in retirement, I think you got to kind of be careful if you're counting on that. Unless you can really, unless you can sell $1 million house and buy a $250,000 house, but most people that are living in $1 million house, no, I don't want to do it. So you gotta balance out the debt, and you gotta make sure you're not putting yourself in a situation where you're gonna have a big debt during retirement, unless you have a plan to pay for it.
Question?
Yep.
I keep seeing a lot of them saying convert the traditional IRA to Roth. I know one of my mom's friends indicated that she pays more money for Medicare Plan D because they have a lot of Roth income versus a long is a lot of IRA.
Well, this is what might have happened. So Roth income wouldn't count when tax. So this is kind of a different scenario. So your Medicare premiums are based off of income. So I'm not going to get into all the details, but your Medicare Part B is based off of income. So sometimes if you convert money to a Roth, that counts as income. So converting to a Roth means I'm taking it from a pre-tax 401k or IRA and I'm putting it in a Roth. Why would I do that? Well, the Roth money is then going to grow tax-free and you can take it out tax-free. In general, there's some caveats there. But the issue is that creates income in that year. So if someone says, well, I want to convert, so they convert $100,000 from IRA to Roth, well, that's $100,000 of income that now is going to be counted for Social Security taxation, for calculation of Medicare premiums. So, it kind of goes back to that whole thing, it's almost like, taxes are a machine where, if you move one lever, it's moving all these other things that you kind of got to be aware of. So it's, you gotta manage the tax, and it's kind of like, unforeseen consequences of, maybe Roth conversion was a great thing to do, except now we're paying higher premium. And we've kind of been talking about this. So coordinating Social Security with your other retirement plans, your IRA, withdrawal, 401k, pensions, all that stuff. So Social Security personnel, if you call Social Security, go to the office, there's some things they can do. They can give you benefit estimates. They can say, here's what your payment would be. Here's what your widow's benefit would be. Your widow's benefit would be. They can tell you the amount you're entitled to now and give you a projection of what your benefit would be in the future. What they won't do is, do the financial planning scenario analysis with you and say, well, if you do this and then this is how the payments are going to go. They're basically there to give you the data and process your application. And I've had situations before where I've developed a strategy with the client to go to Social Security with my instructions on how to do the application, and the Social Security person does it wrong. So in a lot of cases, I have to get involved and reverse that, or help them apply online so it gets done right. But the Social Security people they're good and they're efficient in getting things processed, but they're not there to basically answer your questions. They're just there to say, all right, what do you want to do? Click. You're going to get your check and nothing. So will Social Security be enough for you? Probably not. Where are you going to get your income? We've been talking about that. As far as where you're saving money and where the income's going to come from. This is something from a planning flexibility standpoint. I call it pots of money or buckets of money. So in retirement, you're going to have Social Security. You might have a pension from an employer. And then you're going to be taking withdrawals from your assets. So where are those assets located? For most of us here in the room, we have 401ks or 403bs or IRAs. So we're saving money pre-tax. What you don't want to get into situationally is all of your retirement money is pre-tax. Because if I arrive at retirement and I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, I'm so proud, I got $1 million saved in my 401k. And that's going to be enough to live off because I got Social Security and pension, and that's going to work out just perfect. But what isn't there for me is any flexibility. If I need $1 and I'm in the 25% tax bracket, I got to take out more than $1 from my 401k and IRA because I have to pay taxes on it. So from a flexibility standpoint, what I tell people to think about is money in different buckets. So 401k, IRA is great. Employer match, all that stuff. Most 401k plans now offer Roth 401k, so you can put a piece of your deferral into the Roth account inside the 401k. There's also Roth IRAs. The difference between the pre-tax and the Roth is that the pre-tax money is going to be taxed when it comes out, the Roth money is not. The third thing, two more. One is just what I call non-qualified individual brokerage accounts, where you're just saving in an investment account. It's not a Roth, it's not an IRA, it's just a regular investment account. Those accounts are just taxed for capital gains and interest, so those will be taxed lower than income tax rate. So you got pre-tax money, you got Roth money, you got individual or joint investment accounts. The fourth one that doesn't get enough press or enough discussion to me is health savings accounts. So, depending on your health insurance, you may have the ability to put money in a health savings account. So you have to have a high deductible HSA eligible plan through your employer or that you're buying yourself. If you have the ability to put money in an HSA, it's triple tax free. There's no other type of accounts like that. So the HSA, you put money in, you get a tax deduction. The money grows inside the account, and you don't pay tax on it. You take the money out to pay medical expenses, you don't pay taxes. There's nothing else like that. Now, some people say to me, well, I use my HSA, I put money in, I take money out, I put money in, I take money out as I need it. Now, the maximums on HSA are, for single, it's $4,450, and for families, it's like $6,900. So, to get a tax deduction today, at your current tax rate, and be able to take it out at zero tax in the future, to me is pretty attractive. Because here's this fourth bucket of money that in retirement you are going to have health expenses. You're going to have health insurance premiums, you're going to have Medicare premiums, you're going to have co-pays. You're going to use this bucket of money. So if you can accumulate some money in that bucket, now you can say, all right, when I need money, this is where I'm going to take it from. I'm going to take some from pre-tax, I'm going to take some from Roth, and for my medical expenses, I'm going to take it out of this one. Instead of all your money in a 401k or IRA pre-tax, now you need to pay your medical premiums. Well, instead of a $400 month medical premium, you really have to take $500 out of your IRA, and you have to pay 20% of taxes just to pay that $400 premium. So I bring that up, it's kind of off topic, but I kind of commented on that.
So, when you want to for your retirement, they look at how much you have in the Roth IRA and how much you have. What is your tax bracket when you take your retirement?
So the question was, what is your tax bracket in retirement? So this goes back to where you're taking the money determines your tax bracket. So if you're taking all your money from your IRA or 401k, whatever that number is, that's going to determine your tax bracket. So Roth distributions are not taxable. So if you're taking money from an IRA, that's going to be taxable. Money from a Roth is not going to be taxable. So that's not going to count in your tax calculation, so it's going to keep you in a lower bracket. So part of the strategy is, not probably taking all from one in 1 year. It's taking a little piece from each one to keep you under the tax bracket.
Can you repeat what the three taxes for the HSA were?
So you get a tax deduction for putting dollars in. Now, some employers put money in for their employees, so you don't pay tax on that, but you don't get a deduction for it. I got 10 minutes? 15? Okay. So the first one was you get a tax deduction for putting your dollars in. The second one is you can invest the money on the road tax-free, so you don't pay tax on earnings or capital gains within the account. And the third one is, as long as you use it for medical expenses, it's tax-free coming out. So the biggest pushback I get is, what if I don't need it for medical expenses? I always tell people, if you save $100,000 in an HSA for your retirement and have it sitting there ready to pay for your medical expenses, you will spend $100,000 over your retirement. Now, if you put money in an HSA and you don't use it for medical expenses and you're age 65 or older, you can take the money out, not for medical expenses, but you'll pay tax on the earnings. So, it really, I mean,
But you don't pay it until after you retire,
right.
when you're at a lower
When you're at a
rate.
low- so you
So
might not
in
even
the end,
pay
you might
tax.
not pay taxes.
Right,
So it kind of be a way to shelter some money.
right. So I'll kind of wrap up now.
What do you think about work?
To me, it never works out as well as people think it's going to work out. Because this is a completely different strategy. It's like using life insurance to fund retirement. The projections can look good, but I don't usually see them work out as well in reality. But it can work. It can work. So conclusion, there's many different factors. It's mostly an irrevocable decision. The Social Security decision is mostly irrevocable. You can, within a year of applying, you could go back to them and you could say, I didn't mean to apply. I'll pay you back and reset. So I applied in 2000 a month. At month 10, I've gotten 10 payments. I've gotten 20 grand from Social Security. And I'm like, yeah, you know, my situation, I shouldn't have done that. I could go back to them, write them a check for 20 grand, and they'd reset me and then I could claim it later at a higher value. I've done that once with a client because I hadn't met them and they went and took it, and then, you know, I'm planning and decided probably not the best idea. So they went and paid back the 15 grand that they had gotten already. And they delayed and then they got a higher value later. But mostly irrevocable. Once you get that one in the market, you're in. Each person or each couple has a unique situation to consider. Tax plays a role, and you know, financial planning centered around Social Security is really important to get that decision right. So if anybody got questions, I'm going to wrap up now the formal part of it, but I'll hang around for a few minutes if you have personal questions. Thank you. I appreciate all the questions.
If someone came in